Okay, so what we're going to talk about today, let's see. Any free agency news?
Nothing other than Kyle is still not
Kyle
signed, and
Busch.
he submitted that he's talked to other teams, and Almirola has not closed the door now, or I guess I should say he's opened the door on not retiring at the end of the year.
Almirola,
Almirola,
okay.
yes, because a lot of people are speculating that if Kyle doesn't resign, then the only other seat that would be worth him going to would be that 10 car with Stuart Haas, because there's nothing else open. So with Almirola saying that, then now it's like, well, maybe Kyle's stuck now. But other than that, no, nothing else has been done.
Okay. All right, then also, well, obviously we're going to, well, look, let's recap quickly the big win by my boy Christopher Bell coming through.
Yeah.
Yes, I knew it was just a matter of time, and he picks up the win and does it the way that you analyzed it on last week's show, which was from behind, because he did pretty much nothing the first two stages. And then once again, we get, even though, I mean, I wonder what would have happened if the Truex team had made the right call and put 4 tires out there. If Truex, if it still would have been an issue because he was in dirty air, we're never going to know. But the trends are the trends, and it worked again. And if you thought Christopher Bell was one of those drivers that you kind of had an idea that could make his way through the field, and you were probably getting good odds at that time too, going into the final stage, and you could have taken advantage of it. And Bell's victory pushes him into the playoffs, it looks like.
Yeah, he's in because he's good enough on the overall point standings, where even if we now, and I wrote about it this week, that you could possibly get more than 16 winners now. He's high enough in the points to where it's not going to bump him out. So he's in. It's 4 Toyota cars in and 2 that are not, that they got to be concerned.
Yeah, let's take a look at those playoff standings. This is the first time we're really going to dive into the playoff standings. So you can see that on the screen here. So this is Chase Elliott all the way through till Austin Cindric is right now 16th in the official playoff standings. And then you still have the drivers. And like you said, you've got the article at racereviewonline.net. Matter of fact, I think I have it right here. So yeah, this is the one right here, racereviewonline.net. So you just click right here. Will we really reach 16? So you can take a look at that. But let's go back here. And again, just 2 drivers, Truex Jr. and Blaney, that do not have a win, that are in. So where they are right now, though, Blaney is, so let's say there are 2 more wins. Okay.
Yep.
Let's say Eric Jones and Austin Dillon win.
Okay.
In the next 2 weeks. Does that put Truex 17 and Blaney 18?
No, Blaney would be 17, Truex 18.
Even though,
because Blaney's got more points this season. So
who has more points?
Overall, Blaney.
Why do they have Truex ahead of Blaney in this one?
Because they're counting playoff points. That's the only reason why. He's got more, because stage wins get you playoff points. Oddly enough, Martin Truex Jr. has the most stage wins of anybody this year. Ryan Blaney's third, or tied for second most, and neither of them have won a race this year. So, but they're counting those stage wins as a. Sorry, I got a thing on my phone there. Okay, none of those count. They're counting those as playoff points, but to get in as wild cards, you look at accumulation of points, which really wouldn't matter at that point.
Okay.
I guess the caveat to that would be Blaney's third in the overall point standings. So if Blaney, let's just say he goes on a run, he doesn't win any races. Let's say Chase Elliott starts not getting as many top 5s, and Blaney catches him. Blaney doesn't win a race, but Blaney wins the regular season championship. Blaney gets a playoff spot, even if he doesn't win a race. So that would bump somebody that's already won out too. So Blaney's path right a little more. I guess Truex too, because Truex 4th in points. But he's farther out than Blaney is to Chase Elliott for the regular season title. But yeah, right now, oddly enough, the guys are third and fourth in overall points may not make the playoffs if they don't win a race, which is crazy to think about.
Okay, so let me again make sure I understand this. So on the NASCAR website, where they have Martin Truex Jr. with 619 points and Blaney 656.
Yep.
Why do they have Truex fourth? No, why? Yeah, they have Truex fourth and Blaney sixth here. Is that how they have it? No, they have Blaney ranked seventh and Truex ranked fifth.
If the playoff, they take it as the playoff started today, and they add their playoff points. So you have your points, and then they reset them for the playoffs. So like I think it's 3,000, maybe 2,000, whatever in the first round. So it's like, all right, here's your 16 drivers. They all start at 2,000 points, and then you factor in the playoff points. So Truex has more playoff points than Blaney, which is why he'd be ahead of him.
Where are the playoff points registered?
I'm looking at now on their. I'm on their wiki page. They're under the bonus category.
Bonus. What do I have? I don't have bonus here. Maybe that's why. They have a plus minus, but the plus minus says Truex plus 68, Blaney plus 105. So that can't be.
Yeah, that's not it. Yeah, because like Truex has 7 playoff points and Blaney has 5. So that's probably why.
All right. Yeah. So they're not completely making sense on this. This is part of the reason why and look, I bring this up, and I think it's important to bring up because we do have some of our viewers who are just becoming fans, which I really like. I like the fact that we have viewers that are just into the sport and they do like our content. Matter of fact, Randy Fisher is one of our viewers, and he made a comment regarding last week, by the way, because we were talking about the blocking, Chase Elliott and so forth. So he said blocking is, as far as he knew, blocking is part of the sport. And he says if a leader runs up high to block a potential passer, he sacrifices the lower part for someone else to run by or the other way around. And he talks about references to the fact that he does a lot of blocking when he's racing his own, I guess, go-karts for fun. So the block. So again, I only bring that up because Randy's one of our viewers that's new to the sport, and that was on last week's show. But I it's important that I think NASCAR tries to figure out an easier way to make it, because I don't even understand it. I've been following the sport since for like almost 22 years.
Yeah, I don't know why it's backwards like that on their site. Because if you don't win a race, they go like the wild card. Those two haven't won a race. You go to wild. It's overall points, like the point standings. And Blaney has 656 points scored for the year, and Truex is 619. So he has.
You see that?
And then and then Harvick. So you go down. Larson's won, Busch has won, Logano's won, Bell's not won. Harvick is the next guy that hasn't won, which is why he's technically overall standings. He's ninth. He scored the 9th most points this year. But if you look at the playoff standings, he hasn't won. So he'd be the first guy out.
So should I click the points? So like, let's see if I click points. That puts Blaney
should be third
and Truex fourth.
Yep. Okay. That's what you want to look at. Because the playoff standings really, they don't matter until really the playoffs, because they're adding playoff points to it. But we're not in the playoffs yet. So playoff points, they're not irrelevant because they accumulate in your total through the playoffs. But right now in the regular season, it doesn't mean anything because you don't add those to your points yet.
So I should just stick then to the Wikipedia playoff standings.
Shows you the stage points and bonus points. Yeah,
they make a lot more sense.
Right there. Yeah, and it's updated. That's why I always refer to that, because it's all in one spot. It's got the finishing. There's their finishing order on there too throughout the season.
Of every race, yes.
I always go to that because it's accurate. I know Wikipedia's not always the most accurate thing if you're looking up different items. But
double check.
For this instance, it's right. The finishing order's right. The points are right. Stage points are right. Bonus points are right. It's easy to refer to. They got them all columnized, so easier to read.
Sounds good. All right, so Bell gets the win. So there's 6 more races to go. And that's more than enough time, as you said in your article, for there to be 2 more race winners that are not in the playoffs and that are not named Ryan Blaney and Martin Truex Jr., which could make things interesting.
Yep.
Martin Truex, really. But what did you think about the strategy before we move on? I mean, was that just a bad call, or was that second guessing? Sunday Monday morning quarterbacking.
I think it's Monday morning quarterbacking because a lot of good guys did the same call, right? I mean, Kevin Harvick went off strategy there. Kyle Larson's team did. It's just, I think that's unfortunately the byproduct of being the leader for so long, and people we got to do something different than what he's doing.
Sure.
And it just kind of bit Truex because it worked for them by doing something different. And Truex, they just had a counter, and it just didn't work. But to me, that's a little more Monday morning quarterback because how would you know in that situation? And plus, Truex crew chief James Smalls said that he watched Kyle Larson earlier in the race do 2 tires, and he still drove back up to where he was. So he thought, we've got a fast race car. What's the point? Just put 2 tires. It worked for him. We've got a fast race car. Let's see if we can do it again. And it just goes to show you some places that dirty air and sometimes the short track package doesn't jive well. And that's a prime example. A guy that should have won the race didn't. And that arguably could have cost him a playoff spot if he doesn't win. And he feels like he has to now.
All right, so let's take a look at our our fantasy standings. So Bell's win kept me in first place. And by the way, I made this change here. No, that's not it. This one right here. So I acquired Brad Keselowski again.
Yep.
Who did earn 210 points for me earlier this year. See down here. This is when, and I did it in May. When I first I started to get, because Keselowski, especially at that time, was going nowhere. And I felt, all right, let's take some chances. And it went from Stenhouse to Haley, Stenhouse, McDowell, back to Keselowski. And it doesn't mean that I'm going to stick with Keselowski, because Daytona could change everything. I could just come up with one specific, I could put Bubba Wallace in there if I want to, because he's still available. So, but I think giving Keselowski a chance again now, after a top 10 last week, he knows what he has to do to get in. Compared to the other drivers, including McDowell, and I looked at the tracks at the races that are coming up, and Keselowski has clearly got the most experience and the better experience at those tracks. And it's not like any of the other drivers that are in free agency, including McDowell, have any sort of good experience at those tracks. Again, besides potentially Daytona coming up, I figured, okay, why not Keselowski? Go back to him and just see if he could at least gain some momentum after last week.
It was smart because I thought about it. Keselowski, McDowell, now that he's available, and Buescher are 3 guys that I feel, and I wrote this in my article the other day, they're kind of ones you're going to watch because we all know they can win on the super speedway. Keselowski and Buescher won the duels back in February. McDowell won the Daytona 500 last year. And they've all done good on road courses this year, oddly enough. Because Buescher, remember, he was 2nd at Sonoma and he was 6th in Road America.
Yeah.
So he's sitting there now. McDowell has 2 straight top 8s on road courses. He's arguably a road racer. He just happened to be a good super speedway racer now, too. And as you said with Keselowski, so it's like, that's a good grouping there when half of your final 6 races are on road courses or super speedways. That the way this season's gone, you can make a case at least one of them is going to win. But I was looking at my team and I'm like, I just don't know who I would drop. I really don't know. Almirola would be literally the only one, but he's got a better car than all 3 of them do. When Stuart Haas, and he could also win Daytona.
I don't think you could drop Almirola at this point. Yeah.
I don't either. And Kurt's got to win. He's in the playoffs. Larson's in the playoffs. Suarez
you can't drop anybody else. No.
It's
Almirola.
So like,
that's it.
It's either Almirola for one of those, and I'm like, is that really an upgrade going in? So that's why I'm going to ride it out. I think at this point, I think I just kind of put my team in concrete. We're going to the playoffs in a little over a month and just leave it alone. But you could also overthink it with those 3 too. They're sitting there.
All right, so right there, and CJ now is only 55 points Or is that what it is? Or 45 points?
Let me scroll up. I got it right
45
here.
points behind
45.
me.
I'm 110 behind you, and he's 45 behind me.
Yeah. So it's. I mean, anything could change in one race.
It can.
I could have one bad race. You could have one really good race, and you could be in first place.
Yeah. Plus, we're getting close to the playoffs where the points jump up again. So
yeah,
the 150 plus that CJ's back isn't really going to mean much when you get to the postseason because he can win 2 of the 3 races in a round, and now he's in the lead by 100, 200 points. So the fact that we're all so close right now tells you everything because usually one of us is running away with it by now, and all 3 of us just throw a blanket over it. It's tight.
Yeah, so it should be fun. And this week, they are racing at Pocono, not one of our favorite tracks. At least it's only once, so we're happy about that. And by the way, I'm also glad we don't have a second New Hampshire race. It's okay. It wasn't the worst race. It was fortunate that there was some back and forth late because if Truex would have finished the job, then it would have been even worse. So it wasn't very good, but it's a once. So I'm okay with that. Just the same way I'm going to be okay that there's only one Pocono race. And as far as our picks, now I sent you the picks earlier this week. So did you see our picks?
I do.
Okay,
I did.
So
I got them up right now. Yep.
As far as our picks, those were futures. As far as our Pocono picks, the ones that we all agreed to, looks like we had just 2, and that was Ryan Blaney and Kevin Harvick. Once again, Kevin Harvick. I think this is like a 6 or 7 week stretch where we've all picked Kevin Harvick. And last week he almost did it. I mean, Harvick was close. Finally,
he's good on flat tracks. I almost didn't choose him this week because I'm like, man, 10-1 steep for Kevin Harvick now. We were getting him at 35-1, 30-1, and I almost didn't take him because my brain went. The guy's led like 13, 18, something like that laps all season.
Yeah,
he hasn't had fully the speed. He looked better, but if you look at his better tracks, they're on flat tracks. So like Pocono's not banked. It's a big track, but it also is flat, and he's really good there. So that's the reason I put so low on him. Kind of a lot of guys I want just to kind of just break even or get a little bit of money back and move on because it's so top heavy. There's not a lot you can go off of because we haven't raced on a track like Pocono this year, and the next gen has completely changed everything. It goes to show that it doesn't matter if you win a weekend 4 straight 30th place finishes, you could still win the next week. So that's why I'm like, I just kind of next week in Indy, back in my backyard, another road course race. I think you could kind of move it down a little bit, and like I think you get good solid 5 to 7 drivers. But this week there's too many top heavy. The lines were kind of right where I expected them to be, and just couldn't break the bank on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even put any money on any driver, any of the top 4 drivers, especially Kyle at 5-1. I understand the reasoning because he's been clearly the dominant driver on this track. If you look at it, he has 10 top 10s in his last 11, 7 top 5s, a runner-up, and 4 wins at Pocono. Won and was second last year, led 30 laps in both races. But in his last 5 races this year, his average finish is 22.4. And that combined with the 5-1, and let's keep in mind, I said 10 top 10s in his last 11. The one time he did not finish in the top 10, he crashed. Those are the sort of things he's been doing for the past month, 4 or 5 weeks. Something's been going on. He's getting issues on the track or on pit road. And at 5-1, I just couldn't touch him. I just couldn't do it.
I almost didn't, and then I was like, if he wasn't so good here at Pocono, I probably would have punted. But I just thought, like, well, he's still 5-1, still gonna get a little bit of money back. But I'm wondering if he's to the point where Truex was a month or 2 ago, before the contract talks, because he still doesn't have a contract. I think it's in his head now. I really do think it's in his head. When you're who would have thought we're into mid-July and Kyle Busch doesn't have a contract still for next season?
Okay, yeah.
So, and we discussed how it's affecting Truex's performance for him, and he kind of admitted that. isn't it kind of doing the same to Kyle? Because
be.
now I think he felt by June, it's Kyle Busch. He's probably thinking, oh, we'll be fine. We'll work it out. Why would they want to get rid of me? Now, oh my gosh, now we're into July. Now nothing's even close. Now we got to go into August. So you could see the downward trend where Truex, like we talked about, he's been really good since the contract talk has gone.
Yeah.
He was good that first weekend. He was good last weekend. So I almost wonder if that's – so I almost punted on Kyle and Harvick this week, but I foolishly enough didn't, and I should have, but we'll see.
Well, look, I mean, really, you and CJ kind of looked at this week as I just want to get my money back.
Yeah.
Especially the fact that for the first time ever, CJ had more sleepers than you, had more long shots in his picks than you did. I mean, you really went with all the top drivers this week.
I did. I just didn't know if I trusted some of these guys to, like, are they really going to win? Are we really going to see this? Pocono's just been kind of a track that Gibbs and Hendrick have dominated. And Hendrick's really good right now, other than a couple drivers. And Gibbs, I feel like could be really good. So I just kind of stuck with my guns with there. I'm going to see if that trend works. So I just don't see – it's a track that you have to go off strategy. And I just don't know if we're going to see enough yellows for the strategy to work. And you're not going to win on pure speed if you're those guys. And there's a reason they're in that standing because they haven't had speed. So why not? Let's try it out. And it's $100. We lose it. We'll try to gain it back next week. But if not, let's just keep the momentum going.
Yeah, Ford has just one win in the last 9 races at Pocono. As you mentioned, Toyota has been dominating. They've won 7 out of the last 9. 4 by Kyle, 2 by Hamlin, and 1 by Truex. And pole position hasn't really mattered a whole lot here recently. No drivers have won here over the last 5 that have started in the top 5. And matter of fact, the last 3 winners started 19th twice and 13th. So are we looking at something similar to last week? Is that something that we should be keeping an eye on?
I think so, because you also look at the trends, and the guys that are winning the races lately are doing nothing in the first 2 stages. I don't think starting position just really matters. And with Bell last week, he only led 42 laps. They were the final 42. That's the 5th time in the last 6 races the race winner did not lead a single lap until the final stage. So
what is that about?
I don't know. And then if you look, like, even the 600, if you want to go back to that race before this trip, Denny Hamlin had 7 laps led in the first 405 laps. Kansas, Kurt Busch, 0 laps led until lap 138. So nobody's dominating other than Chase Elliott in Atlanta, Joey Logano in Darlington. You really got to go all the way. That might be it. Now that I'm looking at it, that literally might be it. Nobody that's dominated early has won the race, typically.
Do you think that has something to do with like what happened last week with Chase Elliott? By the way, you had to be really sweating when Chase Elliott looked like he was going to win, and we talked about this, about going with Elliott while he was hot. So Elliott says after the race, and he was completely right, that I was an idiot. Why did I press it so hard that early in the run? There was no need to do that. Christopher Bell was the smart one. He just kept his car just humming along, and he just hummed along and waited for Chase Elliott's car to fall back, and then he passed him. And if Elliott would have made – so my point is I wonder if that's what's getting into all the drivers as well. Is there a strategy out there now that maybe if they haven't thought about it, maybe they should, and maybe last week is a perfect example as a wake-up call. Maybe we really shouldn't push ourselves until the final stage.
It kind of seems that way. I mean, I'll run through it real quick. Austin Cindric, no laps led until 157, won the race. Larson, 1 lap led until lap 167, won Fontana. Alex Bowman, 13 laps led until 5 to go, won the race. Chase Briscoe, 19 laps led until lap 230, 312-lap race. He won the race. Atlanta, Byron, 20 laps led until lap 143. He won the race. Chastain, no laps led in the first stage. All of his laps led were second stage on. Richmond, Denny Hamlin only led the final 5 laps. Martinsville, Byron did not lead a single lap until lap 186. Bristol, Dega, the two winners led only the final lap. Dover, Chase Elliott, 19 laps led until lap 341, 400 lap race. You got to go all the way to this next point. Joey Logano dominated Darlington. But then you go no laps led until lap 138 for Kurt Busch, all middle stage, second stage on. Denny Hamlin, 7 laps led in the Coke 600 until lap 405 in overtime, he won. Logano again, no laps led in the first 208 laps at Gateway. Only laps led in the final laps or the final stage. Sonoma, Suarez, only laps led in the final stage. Nashville, Elliott again, no laps led until lap 245. Road America, Tyler Reddick only led the final 16 laps, all in the final stage. Now, granted, Atlanta, next race, Elliott dominated. He led a lot of laps. And then last week, Christopher Bell did not leave any laps until the final 42. So, yeah, there's just something.
So we've only had one. So Joey Logano at Darlington was the only driver this season that has dominated.
Elliott in Atlanta. And Elliott in Atlanta.
Oh, Elliott in Atlanta.
A couple weeks. That's it. Out of the 20 races, that's it. It's like, helps you live betting wise to go, well, wait a minute.
Yes.
I'm going to get better odds because these guys aren't going to look worth a damn. But all of a sudden, the final stage. So, yeah, I think there's something to be said. Because the stage one and the first stage, I mean, you go back to Kansas, the race winner, no stage points, 600, 10th. 7th in St. Louis, no stage points in Sonoma. 8th in Nashville, no stage points in Road America. Elliott swept the day in Atlanta. And then last week was 6th. So more times than not, they're not even getting a top 5 in the opening stage. It's like they're not even around until the end. And there could be something to say. Yeah, there's something to say by that. So, yeah, I would think Pocono will look the same. I don't know why it wouldn't. It's probably going to look more like a road course because they typically run Pocono like a road course. And if you look at the road course races, and 3 of them, the winner did not score a stage point in the first stage at all. So I feel like starting position is not going to matter, and it's going to be somebody that we're not thinking of until past the midway point. It's going to magically show up in the lead and win the race.
It'd probably be good to look at someone that maybe even practiced pretty well. Maybe they didn't qualify well, but they had a pretty good practice runs, especially if they looked like their best practice run was after 30 or 40 laps or something. And maybe he's hovering around the top 10, and you can get 10 or 15 to 1 on 2 or 3 of those drivers heading into the final stage.
Yeah, don't pay attention. And that's the other slippery slope is this weekend. It's the P&Q where it's like 20 minutes and you got 20 minutes of practice and you qualify. And the 2.5 mile track, you're not going to get many laps turned in those 20 minutes. So if it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. If your car is not very good, you're on pit road making changes, you're not really getting practice the changes that you made. And if your car is pretty good, do you want to make a change or do you stick with it what it is and maybe something changes during the race? So I almost don't even think practice is going to be anything worth telling. Yeah. We're truly, I think, this week guessing. And that's why I went with the heavy hitters, because I felt like if we're guessing, we're 20 races into the year. These are probably the guys that should win. But again, it's a guess. That means somebody could hit it right that we're not thinking of either.
Maybe it's better that there's stages now, because without stages, maybe things would be a lot more dominating. I don't know. I don't know if the stages are the only thing that's keeping these races from being that much more inconsistent.
Yeah, because I'd be curious, which we never know, is if without the stages, with these guys that aren't up front early, able to win the race in the end.
Yeah.
Or they just out to lunch and maybe they're a lap down by the time you get to the midway part of it. It just, I feel like it probably has played a factor in this. Only just naturally cautions, right? I mean, it punches the fields up. It changes strategy. So, but yeah, it's oddly enough, I feel like you pick the driver this week, maybe 2 or 3 of them, and they look really good early. Like, oh, look, I got 4 of the top 5 right now. You're probably screwed.
Yeah.
It's probably the moral of the story is by the time they end, they're probably not going to look like that. Yeah. And that's why this season has been so much parity, is because of that. We just don't know what you're going to get.
I kind of felt that last week, and I should have known better, because I was sitting there like midway through the race and I go, hey man, I got all the top 5 drivers. I'm sitting good.
I do that all the time. Yep.
That's not good anymore. Can't do that anymore.
No.
Got to get it out of your head.
In fact, now you're like, oh no.
Yeah, no, we're in trouble.
Yeah. Well, 5 of the last 6 stage ones at Pocono in general, the race winner didn't even score stage points. So even Pocono as a whole, typically didn't see the guys score stage points early. So,
and like you were saying before, we could see some really weird strategy, which we get at Pocono. That could just like you're watching the race after a few hours and you're going, I don't even know who's in the driver's seat here, who's in a good position and who's not, because the analysts never tell you anything because they just don't know, which really blows my mind since they're the experts.
Yeah, and I think that's what you're going to see, because Pocono is an example of what we're talking about for the new fans. You could pit. It's such a big track and not lose a lap. So a lot of these guys will forego stage points, saying, look, points don't matter anymore.
Like
either I've already got to win. Yeah. Or I'm so far back, I have to win. I don't need points. I'm going to pit right before. So 2 laps to go in the stage, they close the pits. You can't pit anymore. I'm going to pit with 3 to go. Even if I'm in the top 5, I don't care. I'm pitting because I know I'm going to get tires and fuel, going to come back out. I'm not going to fall a lap down. There's only a few laps left. I'm going to finish 25th in stage 1. But all those guys in front of me, a majority of them, will have to pit, and I'm going to cycle to the front. And I'm going to do it again in the second stage. You guys take the points. So then the final stage, when it's money time, I'm now in the track position up front. So that's probably what you're going to see this weekend, which is why I say live betting is going to be key, because you're going to get some guys that Vegas doesn't know this. It's all new to them too. Why is Kyle Busch now plus 1,500 and he's running? He doesn't look good. He's running 20th. Well, maybe he's there by design.
Sure.
Maybe he'll flip it. So one of these weeks, I'm just going to put $100 aside. And after stage 2, I'm going to bet a couple of dollars on every long shot in the field, other than your Rick Ware cars and those cars that are not going to win.
Yeah.
And hit one. You might hit one. And because if we would do that, I should have paid a better attention to live betting after the second stage. Where are the odds sitting then?
There's still more than enough time. There's a lot of races left.
It's a strategy. It's like when people, I know that bet like MLB games that won't parlay them, but they'll put like $5 on every home team, knowing that you're probably going to hit some of them. Yeah. So this is kind of that same deal. Like, all right, you go like plus 1,200 or lower, and I'm going to pick the big name drivers out of that, and I'm going to throw $5 on all, because you're probably going to hit something on there, is what these live trends are showing you. So Pocono is going to be a race that's probably going to do that.
Well, my strategy also is going to include, for instance, out of the 7 drivers I put money, and it's not a lot, out of the 7 drivers I used, 6 of them haven't won a race yet.
Smart.
So and I put a majority of my money on Truex, Harvick, and Blaney. And I know they want to win and get it over with. They don't want to have to deal with any potential, I have to actually win late, that kind of deal. So that, and I also know that they don't care as much about stage points. So they're going to try to win in a race like this or next week. And Watkins Glen, at those particular tracks, they're not going to, or maybe even Daytona, but again, like I said, they want to be in by then. So I think this is the perfect race, and maybe even Michigan the next few weeks, where, you know what, just go with the drivers that really want to win.
Yeah, because you're to the point now, it's oddly enough, do we even care about points anymore? Because everybody's got to win now, right?
Unless you're somebody that, didn't you mention about, like, how about a driver? Does anybody that has a win right now, could they be in trouble even with a win?
Yes. Yeah.
Who's that?
Your bottom guys, like the Cindrics, the Briscoes,
okay. Then they care about points, right?
They do, because they want to be ahead of the other. So you got those few guys. And then you also have Chase Elliott. He wants to win the regular season crown, because that comes with 15 playoff points. That's like 3 race wins.
Yeah, but he's too hot. Further. So, he's still trying to win. So
that's their slippery slope.
So you would stay away then from Cindric, and maybe a few. Who else would you stay away from that probably cares more about points than wins?
Briscoe, Cindric, Suarez, like those guys kind of down there at the bottom. But here's the caveat to that though. If they win,
they're definitely in. Yeah,
they're definitely in, because they got 2 wins, because you go in order of wins. So,
but they have to make those calls, like you were saying, like in a race like on Sunday. I think they're going to hedge more towards I'm picking up those stage points.
I would too. I think the first stage, you go ahead and see what everybody else is doing. You take your points. And then the second stage, Because like Rick Riley, Kevin Harvick last week took stage points. He thought he was in a good position. He finished top 5 in both. He outscored Christopher Bell. Going to the final stage, he was 9 points down for that final spot. Well, Christopher Bell won. Now he's 68 points back. He did nothing wrong. He went stage points, finished in the top 5, scored as many possible points as he could other than winning, and it still bit him in the ass. So, yeah, there's no right. You'd be playing Monday morning quarterback no matter what, but I feel like for those guys, yeah, I would say for these races, I might play the point game and just be sure. Look, I'm ahead of those guys now. I've got enough points. Now maybe Daytona, I swing for the fences and go for the win. Because you don't want to be sweating it out Daytona.
No, not at all.
Because those guys would be too. So it could go either way.
All right, let's just quickly run through this before I let you go and just go over the top guys. So again, Hamlin, he's got 6 wins here. Larson, you put money on Larson. You were the only one to put money on Larson. He did finish second in one of the races last year, but this has not been a really good track for Larson, nor has it been a good track for Chevy. So why did you go with Larson?
Well, because Larson should have won, if you remember right, the first race last year, and he had that tire go down in the last turn, the last lap, and handed the win to Bowman. But then he finished second a day later. So, and I feel like Hendrick showed last year that they have some speed. They turned it around a little bit.
They're getting there on a Pocono.
I feel like, and if you look at road courses, you run that strategy, they're still arguably the top. Larson finished 4th in Road America on a road course. They have some speed, and I thought, well, I'm getting Kyle Larson, a guy just last year should have finished 1st and 2nd for 9-1. Like,
okay,
I'm going to go that way a little bit just to see, because last year I believe he's like 3 or 4-1 for this race. So you're getting double the odds.
Yeah, those days are over.
Way over.
Blaney won here in 2017. Harvick, 13 top 10s in his last 15 with 10 top 5s, 5 runner-ups, and a win. So he's been really good at Pocono. But like you said, the big difference is it's 10-1 now instead of even 15-1. But Truex, to me, I think he is just I put the most money. I invested 35 of my 60 of my 100 on Truex at 12-1. You see he's trending in the right direction. All 5 of his races has been better than the last. And even though he hasn't done much overall in his career, he has won twice. So he's got at least that ability to win on this racetrack. And I just think that, maybe even last week, it's maybe there's a lesson to be learned there for Truex too. Maybe we just need to just chill out until the last stage.
Yeah, because now they just need to be aggressive. I don't think points. Yes, they're the last car on points in, but they're 68 points up. It doesn't matter points anymore for them. Do the strategy to win the race, and I feel like Toyota, they've got his car circled. That's the best interest. You don't need Kyle Busch to win. You don't need Denny Hamlin to win. You don't need Christopher Bell or Kurt. You need him to win.
Yes.
So he's going to get the top of the best.
Yes.
Not saying that there's much of a difference right now with part shortages and all that. But if there is, and there's any extra TLC you can give to any of the car in this fleet, it's his car. So I could see that being them citing stuff his way. So yeah, he's definitely one to decide with this week.
My boy Bowman has been struggling big time, which is the reason why nobody took him. But he's done well here over the last 3 races, including winning. He's the defending champ, as you mentioned. But you just can't take a driver that is just doing so poorly right now. I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, him and Byron are they're not even close.
The 2 of them.
They're not even in the ballpark. So, yeah, I just didn't feel right. I said earlier, you could turn it on one week and be off another, but they've just been so far off for all these weeks. I just don't know how you just magically turn it on and win. They just need top 10s.
You know what? I want to see them qualify well first, because they have not even qualified well. They just keep starting way back and then getting in trouble from the beginning once the green. So if he qualifies well, all right, you know what? If he's still 20-1 after that, maybe I'll put a couple of bucks on him, but I got to see him at least start to qualify well.
Yeah, I want to see something. They need to get this momentum turn rather than, and I don't know if I were them that I would risk doing something off strategy. You just got to take the finish. And if I were to just take nothing but a top 5, don't worry about anything else.
Just to get something going. Yeah.
Just turn the momentum around, because you're going backwards in the most important part of the year.
All right, and then finally, as far as the long shots, get rid of these gnats. As far as the long shot, you took Almirola and Kurt Busch, 25 and 30 to 1. CJ took Keselowski, Eric Jones, and Chris Buescher. And I took Kurt Busch, Keselowski, Wallace, and Jones. So taking a look at those guys, I mean, Kurt Busch to me was a no-brainer because he's got 3 wins here, 14 top 5s over 41 races. And he's, as we can see, he's a car that can win, and he's 30 to 1.
And he's showing speed on the season. And Toyota, as I said, they've won 7 of the last 9 in Pocono, and he's in a Toyota now. So, yeah, he was a no-brainer. And I almost went Bubba, too. Same reason. He needs to win. He's in a Toyota. He's Busch's teammate. He showed last week that there's nothing chaos going on, what he can do.
And, hey, but what about this? Reddick last week, what did we talk about? Well, whose car is Reddick going to possibly take over? Huh? Let me think. Is it possibly Bubba Wallace? And all of a sudden, Bubba goes out there and finishes 5th. Has one of his best races, if not the best race that he's had all season.
It is. He was good on his track away from a super speedway. So now, and he was good in Pocono and Xfinity Series and trucks. So it's like, he's an intriguing. I just didn't have any money left because I went all top heavy. But he's definitely, he'd be one of my top longer shots other than my sleepers I got there.
And then Jones, I thought was, I mean, I know he hasn't done it recently, but overall, this has been one of his better racetracks. He's got 5 top 5s in 10 appearances.
Yeah, he's been pretty good there. I just don't know if the Petty car, that's where I go on pure pace.
Yeah.
I just don't know if he's going to need strategy to get there. And it's just hard to bet on strategy when you don't know what strategy is going to be. So that's why I punted on him.
And the only thing you always got to look out for is the weather at Pocono. Not just because of delays, and it always seems like if it's 2 races a year, and thank goodness there isn't anymore, there was always one of the 2 where we'd have a rain out, we'd have to race on a Monday. That's how bad it could be with the weather. But also, we've had more shortened races at Pocono with weird winners that because they won because it was past the halfway point and the weather stopped the race than any other track. So that could also come into play with long shots. So just watch the weather when you're live betting. Make sure to watch the weather because that could also help you.
It could. And I think this weekend I saw the early weather is hot and humid. No rain, but hot. So that could weigh in to some things too with attrition. But I'd rather see a dry race than because there's no lights there and starting at 3:00.
It's just start at 3:00. It always rains here. No reason to not. And did they have a rain delay last week? Because they started at 3:45.
Yes. Yeah, there was a brief shower that went through before the race started, but there was a little bit of a delay.
Okay, so you're going to run now. You said there's a press conference for Chicago.
Yeah, they're on. They talked about it now, but they're going to meet the media. I just got an update at 4:30 Eastern. So here in a few minutes, that Chicago is a street race.
Indianapolis.
They're going to run
IndyCar.
And no, it's
NASCAR.
NASCAR street race.
You don't know what it replaces?
Road America. Replacing Road America.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Road America had a lot of fans, and I get it, but just was a boring race, too long of a track. So they're going to go to the streets of Chicago, downtown Chicago, next year on July 2nd. And it'll be
July weekend.
For the July weekend.
Okay. Cool.
So we're here the details here at 4:30 with the call with them. So
Are you going to be able to ask somebody something?
Hope so, because a lot of the
media
is there in Chicago. I will. Well, they'll actually have it up on the.
We'll post it up on the site.
We'll put up there. So I'm going to hop on there at 4:30 and see what we find out.
Excellent. All right, Eric, appreciate it. And then one of these weeks we'll catch up on our futures as well because, look, Chase Elliott's the only driver, and it just even happened this week where he went down to 4 to 1. So I mean, you can get. Besides Elliott and Larson, every other driver in contention is 7 to 1 or better. So there are some really good odds out there. If you don't think Elliott and Larson are going to win the championship to make some money on the championship.
There's a lot right now that you can capitalize and definitely should.
Yeah, and then next week, what's next week?
Here, Indy. I'll be there.
It's the road course. Okay.
It's the road course. Indy car.
We've only had one race. One race so far? At the road course?
Yes.
Just one last year.
Yeah.
Okay. So we don't have a whole lot of data to go on.
Nothing, yeah. Just other than road course races this year. That'd be about it.
All right, which isn't easy either. So, but we know Toyota won't finish in the top 5 or 10. Another reason why Martin Truex Jr. really should go out there and win on Sunday.
Really should win. Yeah, he really needs to win.
Because Watkins Glen is also coming up. And Daytona. So his ability to win racing where he has it in his control is starting to run out.
So. Pocono, Michigan, Richmond. That's it.
Yep. All right. Sounds good. Appreciate your time as always, Eric. At racereviewonline.net. Check it out for everything else going on in IndyCar and NASCAR. And we'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good. Thank you.